Teams exist because there's a challenge or an opportunity that's too big for one person to handle alone. One more time. Teams exist because there's a challenge or an opportunity that's too big for any one person to handle alone. The reason a person, an individual, will join a team is because there's a desire in that person to do something bigger than themselves. Whether it's a sports team or a club or family or business or even a faith community, there's a desire to do something bigger than themselves, which is why they would join a team. Unfortunately, you can't just take a bunch of people, throw them together and call that a team. There's some stuff, some intangibles that really make for great teams. The whole idea reminds me of an African proverb, one that I think you'll find relevant and pertinent. It states, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, if you want to do something bigger than you're capable of doing by yourself, then you should go together. There's intangibles that make for great teams. You can't just compile a bunch of people and call that a team. One of those intangibles is what I want to talk about today. I want to take a few minutes and just share some ideas around team chemistry, because extraordinary teams have great chemistry. Extraordinary teams have great chemistry. I'm very fortunate. I've got some really, really cool friends. One of them is a gentleman named Jim Caldwell. Jim is the former head coach of both the Detroit Lions and the Indianapolis Colts. Back in 2006, when Jim was with the Colts, his team won the Super Bowl. So I called him to congratulate him and tell him about, let him know he was going to Disney World, right? So called him and we got to talking about the team. Now, what was interesting is that the 2006 team was very similar in personnel, or the roster was almost identical to the 2005 team. Why did the 2005 team not be as successful as the 2006 team when the components or the individuals were almost exactly the same? So we got to talking about it. Said, Coach, what is it about 2006 that made it different than 2005? He said, Lee, this team just had great chemistry. Okay. What do you mean, Coach? He goes, well, they spent a lot of time together. They got to know each other. They actually kind of liked each other, I think. You could hear him thinking on the phone. He said, but you know what, Lee? The more I think about it, I look back at 2005 and I remember some of the difficult situations we had in 2005. We lost some games we shouldn't have lost. We were beaten by some teams we shouldn't have lost to. We had some season-ending and maybe even career-ending injuries. We actually had a death of a member of one of the coach's families that really stunned the team. But when I think about it, those difficult, adverse situations actually brought the team together. Kind of put that idea in my back pocket, didn't think of it much until I had another conversation. So later, I went back to my local high school, and I'm from New Jersey, Manalapan, New Jersey, and I was speaking to one of the high school teachers there, and I said, Teach, I'd love to know more about chemistry. This idea keeps coming up. As a former athlete, I played college football at Penn State. This whole idea kept coming up frequently, right? Team chemistry, team chemistry. And she said, Lee, chemistry is about how atoms act and react with one another, right? She said, if you remember, there's ionic and covalent bonds, because chemistry is really about bonds. Chemistry is really about bonds. Chemistry is really about bonds. And there's ionic and covalent bonds, the sharing or the exchange of electrons. But here's what she said that blew me away, and I really want you to hear me. She said, Lee, most bonds are formed under heat and pressure. Wow. I think that's what Coach Caldwell was trying to tell me. Once again, she said, most bonds are formed under heat and pressure. And here's what I've learned. The same stuff that tear most teams apart, it's the exact same stuff that bring extraordinary teams together. The things we don't want to deal with, the difficult conversations, the things that are really hard to deal with and maybe outside of our comfort zones are really the things that take extraordinary teams and bring them together. You've probably heard this 1,000 times, right? Life is 10% of what happens to you, but 90% of how you react or respond, right? Well, let's just rephrase that in the context of this conversation. Life is 10% of heat and pressure, but 90% of how you react or respond. So what's the difference? Why do some teams take heat and pressure and they fall apart? They take heat and pressure and they point fingers and play the blame game. Why do some teams take heat and pressure and it becomes a disruptor or it will actually tear a team apart? But other teams will take that same heat and pressure and leverage it to bring the team closer together. In my experience, it has nothing to do with experience or talent. Yeah, I don't care how long you've been on it, how long you've been doing it, how many years you've been around. That's not the determinant of what makes heat and pressure break you or make you. Here's what I found. It has everything to do with maturity. Yeah, maturity. See, immature people take that heat and pressure and they play the blame game. They become territorial. They protect themselves and they point fingers at everyone else. Mature people take that same heat and pressure, and instead of it owning them and it driving their behavior, they leverage that same heat and pressure to bring the team together. Maybe this word picture will help. I love word pictures, right? What does a welder do? And don't say welds. No, you know what a welder does? They take heavy metals and they bond them or they fuse them together. Isn't that right? Any idea what the welder uses to put those heavy metals together? Heat and pressure. Now, why would you take two heavy metals and put them together? Because they're stronger together than they are by themselves. And the only way to take them and put them together properly is by leveraging heat and pressure. The stuff that tears most teams apart is the exact same stuff that bring extraordinary teams together. We call that adversity. There's pain and discomfort. Most people, when things get tough, don't like pain and discomfort. Most of us don't, right? When things get tough, here's what we do. We try to find ways to hide or mask our pain, and or we retreat to a place of comfort. I don't like that. It's uncomfortable. Wah, wah, wah. I was going to put my thumb in my mouth, but I've been shaking too many hands. And I don't know where your hands have been. Yeah, that's what most people do. But not winners. Not successful people. Not what we call peak performers. They take that same adversity, that same heat and pressure, and instead of running and retreating and hiding, they leverage it. They use it to actually have the team come together. They actually use that heat and pressure, that adversity, to build stronger bonds. Because they understand, as mature individuals, the reason I'm a part of a team in the first place is because I can't do this by myself. I need your help. I need your help. And if we do this properly, if we do this maturely, we can all get this done together. Let me wrap this up with an idea. It's something practical. It's something that's benefited me. I think it will benefit you. It's just a question. Here's what most people ask when things get tough, right? When there's heat and pressure. Here's what most people ask. How am I going to get out of this? I know my fellow speakers, within the last couple of days, we've asked ourselves that same question. How am I going to get out of this? Winners, successful individuals, don't ask that question. They ask a similar question in word, but very different in perspective. Instead of asking, how can I get out of this? Winners ask, what can I get out of this? Same heat and pressure, same pain and discomfort, but instead of it owning them, they own it. They leverage heat and pressure not to tear the team apart, but to bring the team closer together. Does that make sense? Chemistry is critical to the success of any organization, any team, whether it's an athletic team, a club, a family, a business, or a faith community. We're together in the divide, I hope, right? There will be heat and it's inevitable. It's part of the game. It's part of life. How we handle it, if we have the maturity to handle it, will be the determinant of whether we fall apart or come together. Thank you.